Welcome to Team DataFam Tableau User Group meeting number 34. So we're getting up there in numbers at the moment. This tug's a little bit different to a few other tugs. We look after or cater for the presenter rather than the audience. So we meet at a whole heap of different times so we can actually get the best presenters from around the world. Obviously, all meetings are live, obviously, recorded, put on YouTube. I'll talk about that later. We do have a few TC25 presentations booked up in the future. We do still have, I think it's one Visit Sydney presentation. I don't care if you go to TC or if you go to Visit. If you want to present anything at all, please get in touch. My email is team.datafam@gmail.com and we can find a slot for you to present on. Today, Jim Dehner is going to present fun ways to tackle tough problems about Tableau, obviously. So Jim, I'll hand it over to you and you can take it from there.
Okay, very good. Let me share my screen. Okay, hey, first of all, thanks for letting me, for giving me this opportunity, Chris. It happens to be about 5 o'clock at night yesterday for me, and you guys are in tomorrow. So I kind of like never know where I am. But today I want to talk about 6 problems or 6 question types that keep coming up, whether it's on the forum or whether it's in social media or whatever, but we keep seeing these same types of questions come up. So they must be pretty tough to solve. The first type of question that we see over and over again is how to do a top end and other calculation. You know, users got a data set out there, and he's gone through, he's done some sort of ranking. He wants to see the first 3 items and then wants all the others lumped into a category called other. And it's how do I go about doing this? And I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do it. First of all, the easy way, and I would advise you, if this works for you, by all means do it. We don't have to go any further than this. Create a set. I created a set here on subcategory. And I'm going to show you what the set looks like. There's nothing magic about it. All you do is go out to the top tab when you create the set, and I've got a top n, and I've created a parameter here, and all this parameter does, it's an integer parameter, and it just is, you know, how many do you want to see before we start lumping everything else into other? And we've created a set that way, and now we create some labels based on that set. And all this does is it says if the subcategory is in the set, then take the subcategory name. If it's not, then use other. And you can just take that and you can drop it on the chart there. And we start getting a sense of what we'd like to see. But we've got too much. We've got too many items on the screen. What we want to do is we want to take out that other, and we want to take out the detail on the other, and we just want to see the other. And it's no more difficult. Whoop, he did it wrong. We have to have that label in there, and then we pull that out. And it's no more difficult than that. And we've got the top end and other, and we can use a parameter here. And now we're looking at the top 4 values. And this is very easy to do. Now, if that's going to meet your need, stop right there. There are other users, and we won't mention Kirk Monroe by name, who want to take a look at the top end as it's varied by another dimension. And here I've taken a look at the year of the order date. And the first thing we have to recognize is that the top end in 2025, and I want to just look at 3 here. The top end in 2025 are going to be phones, chairs, and binders. But if you look in 2024, it's not those categories. It's phones and chairs, and I think it's down here in tables and so on and so forth. So you're going to have different categories or different subcategories in each year. And what we need to do is we need to be able to first identify the categories and then have the individual category totals, and then go one step further and put everything else into other. Now we're going to do that by using an LOD. And I can hear people moan out there and they say, oh, Jim's using LODs. What a surprise. I do tend to overuse them. But all this LOD does is it calculates the total sales by subcategory and by year. Now I want to use that in a ranking calculation. Okay, now rank is a table calculation, and we want to calculate the rank by year in this LOD. So we're going to look at each of those years independently, and we're going to rank them descending. And I want to go one step further, and I'm going to create a label just like I did before. And all this does, it says if, well, I got to do this first. We got to create a true false. So we're going to take this ranking, and if the rank is less than our parameter, return a true. If not, return a false. And then we're going to create a label based on that rank. And if the subcategory is in the label, I want to add a space and then the subcategory name. And if not, we're going to use the name other. So we can take these things and we can break them down into a total and other. Now comes the hard part. What we've got at this point is something that would kind of look like this. We're going to look at the top three values. And as we look across here, I can see the three values that we want, and we want to see those individually, and then we want to take all of this, we want to total that, so that's going to be my other value. And the same thing here, and it's going to vary by year. And to do that, what we actually have to do is we have to get the total of these three and take that from the total of the entire year to get the other value, and we want to show these individually. So to get the total for the other category, we're going to start here, and we're going to say we want the window sum of those three items, and if the true false returns a true. If it's in the set of three, then record the sales, and I want the window sum of those. And I want to go one step further, and I want to take a look at this, which is the value that we want to get to when we say, once again, if the subcategory is in the it returns a true, record the sale. Otherwise, record the difference between the full year total, and this is just another LOD, it's for the entire year, the sum of sales, minus that window sum that we just calculated, which would be the sum of the three items that are in the category. And we can drop that on the chart, and it begins to look like this. So what we want to see is we want to see these individual values, and then we want to see this remaining value, which is the difference between the total and those three. And we can do that with a show hide filter. Now we're going to talk later about the order of operation a little bit, but the show hide filter allows us to put a filter on a table calculation and not disturb the underlying table. And all this is a last formula, and last is another table calculation. It says if last equals 0, I want to see it. I want it to show. Or if the category, if the ranking of the category is less than our parameter value there, show. And if not, hide everything else. And when we drop that on and we show it, we end up with a value that looks like this. We get our top three and our other value when we get the totals. There's one thing I want to show you here is this calculation we used to put a space in the subcategories that are in the top three. And we do that so that they will always sort with other at the bottom, so that other is always at the bottom. Otherwise, other is going to sort alphabetically. Well, there's two ways of doing the top and other. Relatively simple and pretty easy to go with. The next type of question we see repeatedly is users will come in, they say, hey, look, I want to make this chart and I want to look at day, week, month, year, and they want to see all sorts of different date levels. And they say, how do I go about doing it? Once again, I'm going to show you two different ways of doing it. First, the easy way. And if this works for you, by all means, do this. All I have done here is I've taken my order date, and this order date is a continuous exact date. That's all I've done is I've just put it in as a continuous exact date. Then I applied it as a filter. And when we go to apply it as a filter, we get a choice of how we would like to use that filter. You can use a relative date. You can use a date range. You can look, greater than a date or less than a date. You also have browse period. Okay. And what browse period does, if you haven't used it, by all means, try it. What browse period does, it takes a look at today's date, and the period is going backwards from today's date. So like these values here today on my calendar is the 8th. So I've got values on the 8th, and I've got this set at month right now, and we're going back to the 10th. I guess that's the last real data point I've got from the prior month. And you can just focus in on whatever level you want to see. You can look at the 3 month, the 1 week. Obviously, 1 day would be a data point. You can look at the 1 year, and you can flow through the different date levels that way. Now, if that meets your needs, once again, that's a great place to stop. You don't have to do anything more than that. If you need to do more, it's not that much more difficult to create a parameter that we're going to use in a date function so that we can control the date level that we're looking at. And the only thing that's really important about this parameter, it has to be a string parameter, but the value here is what gets placed into the date function. And the syntax for these values has to be consistent with what a date function wants to see. And that is, it's single valued, it's day, not days, it's week, not weeks, and it's all lowercase. Now, the display value, you can make a display value anything. If you want to call that date, for example, you can call it whatever you want. We can make this month like this, and you can make it whatever you want to look at. And then we create one very simple date function. And all this is, it's date trunc. Date trunc is going to return the first day at the level of the parameter value of the order date. So here we're looking at the year value. This is going to return January 1st of the order date. And when we change the parameter value, we now change our chart. We're looking at months. We're looking at weeks. And if you want to get down to the day level. Okay. And so there's 2 ways of doing that. That's very, really pretty easy to do. Now, I know somebody out there is going to say, hey, wait a minute, you're using a continuous date. I don't want to use a continuous date. That's okay. We can use a discrete date. I'm going to make this months there, so a little easier to see. All you have to do is change the date from a continuous date to a discrete date. And it's the only change you have to make. And your chart can look like this. I put category up here just to break up the chart a little bit more. We can pull that off, and you can look at weeks, we can look at years, and we can use it as a discrete value, or we can use it as a continuous value. Not difficult at all once you know how to do it. Now comes one of my favorite types of charts. And this goes back, a lot of users like myself, I came from a background in Excel. I had no knowledge of databases and visual analytics before Tableau. Everything was done in Excel. And for those of you who are familiar with Excel, Excel has a chart type that they call a combo chart or a combination chart. And it allows you to do things like this. You can take bar charts and line charts and put them together, and it's relatively easy to do. And we'll get questions all the time. How do I do that in Tableau? Because we don't have that kind of chart type. We just don't have one. Well, I'm going to show you a couple ways to do it. Now, first of all, you can start with this. If you're going to use a stacked bar chart, the easiest way to do it is by using measure values, and you have the option of doing a dual axis, but you're limited to one single additional measure. I'm going to show you the data. This is data that I made up. Heather's sitting there saying, yeah, now I understand why it doesn't go to Iron Viz, with data like this. I just created a data set that has five measures in it, sales, quantity, and number of customers. I want to see those as bars. And then I just calculated an average. Here's the average customer purchase and the average selling price. And those I want to see as lines on the chart. Now, if we're working with a stacked bar chart, not too difficult. I'm going to break this apart. Okay. We can see the bars here. And for the bars, I can go up and I can filter the measure names, and I can take what I want as the bars, the sales, the quantity, and the customers, and I can create a stacked bar chart with that. And I can take one value, my average selling price, and I can drop it on a second axis, and then we can dual axis. And lo and behold, we get the chart that we would like to see. Now, the problem comes about when we want to see side-by-side bars, or we want to use more than one single line on the chart, and we break the axis. And what's going on here visually is that for each one of these bars, we need a discrete place on the axis, and then we need a separate place for the line, and you got to connect the lines together. Well, I'm going to show you how we can do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our data source. And what I want is I want 5 dates here, one with sales, quantity, customer, and with each of our metrics. So we're going to pivot this data. So that we got a data set that now looks like this. And I've got an ASP for each date, and I've got a number of customers for each date. And we're going to use that to create this chart. Okay, and it's a dual axis chart, and I'm going to break that apart again just so we can see it, and it's a little bit easier to see if I break it apart. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to decide what are the bar values in our data and what are the line values. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to create a calculation. And all this does is it looks at the pivot field names, and it says if it says averages, the average selling price or the average number of customers, I want to see those as lines. Anything else I want to see as bars. Once we've done that, we can calculate our individual bar values. If that bar or line equals bar, return the values, and we can return our line values, and we can see the line values. So now we've been able to separate these things out, and we've got bar values and we've got line values. We've got to make one additional change. We've got to take this axis and we've got to break it down so that I can have a place to put each of the individual bars and a place for each point on the lines. Now, someone's already figured out, they said, oh, hey, wait, this isn't an exact solution. No, it's not an exact solution, because what we're going to do is we're going to move those points using a calculation, a date function called dateAdd, and I'm going to move those points over a number of days based on an index. An index is a table calculation again, and I've got this multiplier in here. All this is it's an integer multiplier, and that just allows me to move bars back and forth and correct the picture so it looks good. But we're actually, and you understand this, we're actually moving along this continuous axis, and we're moving points. We're changing the position of those points by days. And all we do at that point is every time the pivot field name changes, every time I change from one bar to another bar or to a point on a line, we're going to change the index. And that's how we space things out. We're just going to make that a dual axis again. And the first thing you're going to say is, Jim, you broke the chart. This is not what we wanted to see. And that's because measure names got thrown up here, and we just pull that off. And we've created the chart that we want to see. I'm going to show you one additional way to do it. For people like me who are engineers at heart, we want to be a little bit more refined than that. And this is just a brute force way of doing the same thing. All I've done here to change the spacing on this axis is I'm looking at a case statement, and we're going to look at those names. And when for the sales values, I'm going to start those at day 1 for each one of the months. And for the quantity, I decided to move it over 5 days. For the number of customers, we're going to move it over 10 days. And then for the 2 lines, I'm going to drop it in between here at 3 days and at 8 days. And that will space those out. And we're able to create the chart, or the combo chart, if you will, that you see in Excel. Now, the 4th type of chart that we want to look at is a waterfall chart. And I'll be the first to admit, I had a lot of trouble with this chart until I went out and somebody showed me how to do it. Because I kept trying to do the math. How do I, calculate the positives and the negatives? It's really a very easy chart to make once you know how it's done. We're going to use profit, and all I've done here is look at the profit. And I've added a color code, and this is nothing more than just something that says, look, if the sum of the profit is greater than 0, return a true, and the trues are going to be blue, and the falses, or the negative values, are going to be orange. And that's what our chart looks like. And we're going to start by adding a table calculation. We're going to make this where's my running value? There it is. We're going to start by making it a running total. And when we make it a running total, it begins to look like what we want. We're getting this idea of a progression over time. But what we want to do is we want to cut off these bottoms so that we're just seeing the step chart going up there. And now here's the trick that you got to know, and what you need to know on how to do this. We're created something that I'm going to put on the size tile right there. And that value is equal to the minus of the profit. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to drop that onto size. And lo and behold, we got the size changed, but it still doesn't look like we want until we change this to a Gantt chart. And as soon as we make it a Gantt chart, we've got that waterfall chart that we're looking for. And it's really very easy to do. And yes, I can come back in at this point. We can add totals, or we could add subtotals to the chart. It's a really very easy chart to make once you understand how to do it and use it with the Gantt chart. Now, this is a question that comes up, I'm going to guess, several times a week, where people want to take a dimension and they want to create a calculation. They want to put that dimension in a filter, and they want to filter that dimension, and then they want to do the calculation again, and they want it unfiltered. And they say, well, how do I go about doing it? I don't know how to do that. This is just a straightforward application of the order of operation. And we're going to take a little detour here, and we're going to talk about the order of operation. This is the model that I use for the order of operation. I'm the only one that does that. So don't be surprised if you said, I've never seen that before. I take the order of operation and the 10 steps of the order of operation and break it down into 3 groups. The first 2 steps in the order operate on the workbook level, and the remaining 8 steps are on the worksheet level. And the first 3 of those steps create a structure for that data table on the worksheet that you're working on. And then after that, we just fill it full of data, values, measures, if you will, and then we decide what we want the chart to look like. Well, for this first example, what we're going to talk about happens right here in steps 3, 4, and 5. And this is where most new users and where most experienced users get confused. Step 4 is where sets, fixed LOD, and top end are calculated. If I want to apply a filter that affects the fixed LOD and top end and sets, apply it as a context filter. If you want to apply a filter that does not affect those values, apply it as a dimension filter. That's all we're doing, and it's no more difficult than that. Just here's an example. We're going to take a look at all I've calculated here is a fixed LOD. This is just fixed at the category level. I want the sum of the sales. And then I've taken region, and I placed region on a filter, and I can filter region. And we'll see that my fixed LOD because I'm applying the filter after the LOD is calculated, my fixed values do not change. My sales value, just the straight sales value, do change. And this comes in handy when you want to do something like this. You know, people will say, I want to make a bullet chart. And the bullet chart, I want to take a look, and I want to take a look at sales, and I want to take a look at the fixed sales. And I'm going to break the chart apart again, and we're going to put it back together. And all we've done here is the same thing. This is our fixed LOD that it's not affected by that filter, and those values aren't changing, and these values are changing, so that when we do a dual axis and then synchronize the axes, there we go, right there, you can see that the bullet chart does show us what we want to see. No more difficult than that. And you know, I have seen over and over and over again, users get confused, very experienced users get confused on this. When is that filter being applied? If you just remember, context filters are applied in step 3 before the LOD is calculated, before the set is calculated. Let that be your guide. Now, one last example, and I want to talk about filtering table calculations. And this gets back to this order of operations again. Table calculations are calculated in step 10 of the order of operation. And that's after all the context filters have been applied, the dimension filters and the measure filters, and of course, any workbook filters have been applied. Table calculations are applied only after all those filters are applied. So you run into an issue where you say, well, I want to be able to apply a filter to a table calculation, but if I apply the filter, it seems to affect the totals. I just want to take a look at the running total of sales. This is just a simple table down running total. And all it's doing is that this value is the sum of those two values, and that value is the sum of those three values, and so on and so forth. And if we were to look at it plotted like this, we'll start down here at the beginning value, which here is, I don't know, it's 14,000, and the end value is 2.3 million. The total sales over the period of time. And what we would like to do is we would like to be able to take a look, and users usually say, hey, I want to take a look at these last values, maybe these last 12 values. And if I just keep those values, I've applied a dimension filter. It's a blue filter. It's applied way up here in the order of operation before that table calculation is calculated. So I'm not getting the $2.3 million total. I'm only looking at that portion. Well, that's not what the user wants. What they really want to do is they want to be able to take a window and slide it along the axis and just take a look at that last 12 values. And we can do that with another table calculation. And that table calculation is a last filter. Here I take a look at last is less than 12, then show, else hide. Last is calculated from the far right portion of the chart or the bottom of the chart and goes back to the left. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we just want to see the last 12 values. A lot of people will use show and use true and false. I like show and hide because if I pick the workbook up, 6 months from now, I can remember what I did. Okay, so we can just drop that on there and we can look at the last filter and we can take a look at show. And sure enough, we're seeing 1.6 million, and there's our 2.3 million, and we've looked at the last 12 values. Now you're probably looking and saying, hey, I've seen that before. What's so special about that? It gets kind of special when you want to do this. Now I want to be able to look using a range filter, and I want to be able to set this range to any range that I want to look at. Now I can't use a last filter. I guess maybe you could calculate where that is on the chart. But the easier way to do it is using a different table calculation, and that's a lookup function. And here we're going to use a lookup, and I use a lookup min order date at the current position. That's what that 0 means, okay? Don't use ATTR, please. ATTR responds when you're going to bring back multiple points and they can have different values. Use something that you can relate to and you know what it is. Here I used min date. And all we've done is we've taken that value, we put it on our column axis, and that's computed. It can go across, or it's computed by month and day. And we've used that as a filter. And now we can set that filter any place on that chart that we would like to see it. Okay. And it's like moving that window that I was talking about up and down this total, oops, we'll pull that guy off, up and down that total line. Okay. Well, those are the 6 that I wanted to show you. And I do have time for some questions, so I'm going to stop sharing. And if there's some questions, feel free to ask. Nobody has a question, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Jim. Amazing.
It's strange.
Frederick, don't you play games with me. I see you out there enough. You know most of this stuff.
I think I've got a comment since you're asking. On the combo chart, it's not so much a technical question. It's more, I don't know if it's best practice. When you got a combo chart, you got axes with different scales. Like on your example, you had thousands on one side and 20 or 15 on the right hand side. You got bar chart and line charts. It looks like it's the same scale. So I always get confused, or users sometimes get confused with, because it's multiple scales. Obviously, you can't synchronize because you look stupid. But how do you guys address the potential confusion of users that might think it's the same scale, but it's not, because we're comparing thousands against 20s, for example?
Yeah. If you saw the combo chart that I made, I had averages that I was using. So I had a scale on the right-hand chart that made sense. It was like $2, $3, that sort of thing. And on the left-hand chart, we were looking at total values. Yeah. Has the session started? No, it hasn't started, Heather. We'll get to it. We'll get it going here in a minute. Okay. Only kidding, Heather. Only kidding. Any other questions?
Heather's gone anyway. It's time for the kids to go to school.
Okay. Chris, I specifically took out all of my contact information because I knew you were going to put it up on the slide. You showed it to me.
It's the next slide. There you go.
Okay, there you go. Everything that you've seen, everything that I've done today is already out on my blog. If you go out to my blog at jimdehner.com, the blog piece is written. It's sitting out there. I did record this with a practice session, so it's on YouTube. But the workbook is also downloadable, and you can download that off of my Tableau public site. There's a link to it on the blog itself. It'll take you right out to Tableau Public, and you can download the workbook. If there are no other questions, you can ask a question about anything. You don't have to ask a question about this.
Well, if you want to pitch your slide, we can go on to the next bit as well, because usually I do that piece, and it's good that you can do that piece as well.
Okay, Viraj, did Viraj supply the questions?
So Viraj supplied the questions. So is there any other questions about the session that you just saw from Jim, or the presentation, before we move on to this part? And there's always room for questions afterwards. Silence. Okay, we can continue. So Jim, 5 questions, quick answers. I always beg and plead people to supply questions for this. Otherwise, I've got to go out to some sort of AI and build questions, because they're different questions all the time. No one gets the same questions at all. We had a few weeks ago where someone said, "Oh, I watched a recording and I prepared for that question." I'm like, it's pointless. It's pointless preparing, because all the questions are different all the time. You'll get the question. I don't know which order the questions are in, because I created them yesterday. But Viraj supplied a whole heap of questions. I fashioned them into what you'll see today, but it's actually quite surprising sometimes where I don't know what you're going to present, and I've just seen it for the first time. You don't know what the questions are, and I haven't even asked them yet, but there's a lot of crossover in the middle on some of these as well. So as I said, quick questions, quick answers. You can pass if you want to. I don't think you will, but it's your choice completely as we go through. First question is, what was your first tool you used for data visualization, i.e. before Tableau?
Oh, I was an Excel guy. I did Excel, and we were downloading data out of a data warehouse, and I was running around following people who would put up ERP systems, and they were just drowning in data. And I'd grab it and I'd make bar charts and line charts, and they thought they were the greatest thing in the world.
Perfect. And what was the viz that made you say, wow, when you first saw it?
Wow. There was a viz. If any of you were at TC, not this last year, but the year before, and saw Iron Viz and saw the work that, please help me. I forgot who won that year. All of a sudden I've gone brain dead.
Was it Chris last year?
Yeah, Chris. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was Chris. We were sitting there in the audience, and he was making this. We could see what he was doing with the calculation, and he was making this chart, and it looked like a dog's breakfast. And all of a sudden, he pivoted that chart, and it was like, boom! And the whole audience that was there kind of went, oh, at the same time. So yeah, that was it.
Cool. Perfect. Obviously not me, Chris, the other Chris Westlake, but there's
Yes.
a million different Chris's.
Yes.
Describe a dashboard you'd love to create given unlimited time and data.
Wow.
No, where was the last question?
Yeah, where was the last? No, actually, there's a couple of. If I could get data sets, and there's a couple of data sets that I would love to get. I'm kind of a sports enthusiast. I'm going to give you two options here. Some of you guys know I'm a triathlete, and I'm an Ironman triathlete, and I have always wanted to take a look at the various Ironman sites around the world. And to qualify to do an Ironman, there's a swim and there's a bike and a run, and they're obviously on different courses. In some courses, it's tougher to ride, and other courses, it's tougher to swim, and the like. And I'd like to compare all those courses to see where the best courses are for different people to do things. The other one that I would love to see is I would here in the U.S. where they play football with a pointy-ended ball, not the round ball, the pointy-ended ball. I would love to track the success rate of people drafted in the first round over time, because it seems to me that it's very low. It seems to me that if it got to 50%, I'd be surprised. So I have this thought in the back of my mind that sports drafts are a waste of time, and more people get hurt than get helped. And yes, I see this coming up here, Frederick, about going out.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Next question. What is the most satisfying aha moment you've had while building a viz?
Okay, this is going to sound very self-serving, but a couple of things that I've worked on. I'm going to point to that combo chart as one of them. There's some other charts that I've done just recently. If you've seen the work that I've done on spatial parameters, and go out to the blog and take a look at that. But the work on spatial parameters and trying to get spatial parameters to work through two different charts and get them actually doing what they're supposed to do. It was it was just running out of choices, and finally I picked a combination of choices and it worked, and it was like, oh, okay, don't try to figure out why, just record that this is what you do and act like you know what's going on when you really don't. By show of hands, how many people have used spatial parameters? Okay, how many people have had success the first time out with spatial parameters? Okay, you see, everybody's in the same boat. Yeah, I hear you. Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. Last question. What's your preference, dark theme or light theme dashboards?
If it's a business dashboard, light theme. If you're making something for show, dark theme.
Yep,
Okay.
definitely.
Definitely.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for that. Fred Ferry, he's in the audience, but he's in the audience pitching the sports tug coming up in about 2 days' time.
Yeah.
I'll pitch him because he's here on this tug next week talking about data changemakers.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Fred, while you're here, do you want to talk about both, if you like, sports tug and next week?
Yeah. So the sport tugs, as the name implies, we invite people that love sport, not necessarily people that work in sport analytics, but people like Jim like sport and like dashboard and visualizing stuff. So that's coming up this week. APAC time zone. We've got Jeff and Jacob, Kiwi, and then Sydney Snyder. So I think that should be an amazing sport talk. If you're into sport analytics or you want to showcase a vis-a-vis you've done using sport data sets, maybe Jim, you could be the next. If you can find that data set, just join. I think it's quite fun. We're just learning IPS. And it's not always, as I said, it's not reserved to people that work in professional sport clubs. It's passionate people like us as well. So that's, I think that, yeah, you go, Chris.
No, I was going to say, obviously, when I say next week, I mean in 2 days' time for the sports tug and in 3 days' time for data changemakers.
Yeah, data changemaker. I don't know if you heard about this one. It's a different cup of mine. So this one, if you remember this for social good, so the concept is we use our data skills to help non-for-profit. So I think that's a big premise of data changemaker. We start with the premise that not-for-profits do an amazing job. They provide amazing services, but they don't have the data skills to showcase their impact. So that's where we come in. We visualize their information. So we run projects with non-for-profits. They give us their data, and then we visualize it. So we had a project running last month with Bhumi, an org in India. We've got a project running right now with No Kill Colorado. That Chris is actually helping because that project is data wrangling and data viz. So we're not only doing data viz, we do the whole range of data product or services. And Chris is one of the judges with the data wrangling. So I think we're having fun and we're helping not-for-profits, which I think is good. So if you want to use your data skill for social good, join us. I think that's really amazing. We help not-for-profit sector to make an impact, which I think is really what I love. It's all pro bono. We don't charge. It's all because we're just loving helping non-profit sectors. Thanks,
Definitely.
Chris, for the plugs.
Awesome. No, that's good. More details soon, as obviously, and the tug on Friday, Thursday, depending on where you are in the world. Always good. So the recording for this session and obviously all other sessions for the Team DataFam tug and a whole heap of other online tugs is on YouTube as well. Or if you're not watching on YouTube, there's a Spotify and a Apple podcast, so audio only, but you can listen to them while you're away from the computer. Watch them when you get back if there's something important to see. If anyone wants to present or if they've got any feedback or anything, please email me at team.datafam@gmail.com. But again, thanks, Jim, for that presentation. Awesome to see. There's a lot of little tricks in there, a lot of little things to pull apart. But yes, I always reference your 10-step order of operations because I think that's more detailed and sometimes easier to understand than the Tableau-generated diagrams of exactly the same thing.
Well, thank you for doing that, Chris. And I've said many times, I keep waiting for somebody to knock on the door from Seattle and say, "Hey, you can't do that way. You got to fall in line and use the approved chart." But for obvious reasons, I do it the way that I do it. Okay. Thank you again for the opportunity. Appreciated it.
Awesome. And if anyone's got anything more to say, now's the time to say it. There's been some chat about football draft data and stuff like that.
I grabbed that link, by the way.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Chris.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
See you guys.
Have a good day.
Bye.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.